Hello, everyone. This is Rick with the Cyber Pro podcast. We're still here on site at the Hacker Dojo with the Pacific Hackers Association. And my guest right now is actually one of the honored speakers for the Pacific Hacker Conference. Let's get to it right away. Question number one, who are you and what do you do?
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. First off, so my name is Tom Nicolino. I'm the founder of HAVOC, which is basically a couple of things going there. I got a HAVOC podcast. You can find out more at havoc.fm. But I also have developed an open source platform for automating adversary emulation. It's basically a cloud native open source tool that enables you to try to recreate the things that attackers are going to do in a typical network that you're looking to defend, just to make sure that you can actually detect and defend the things that are going to get thrown at you.
Nice. How did you get your start in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was kind of always interested in cyber. Like I've got a background in. I took a vocational program. Actually, went through a vocational program that was electronics and computer science oriented. Right, and so I actually don't even have a bachelor's degree. I just got an associate's degree. That was a very long time ago. But when I did that, I got lucky in terms of getting into the workforce at this value-added reseller, and I had an opportunity to touch lots of things, right? So I was able to get my hands on, Windows systems, Linux systems, full domains, Windows domains. We were doing installs of that stuff, networking installs. Like I built wide area networks for companies and what. So it just gave me an opportunity to see a lot of different environments and work with a lot of different people. And as I was going through that, I had this just always this kind of innate curiosity for this notion that there was some kind of underground world that wasn't exposed or obvious to me or whatever, and I just had to find out more about it, and that's really what started it. And then somewhere along the line, I got an opportunity at a SOC for a managed security services provider. But the way that opportunity came up, and the thing that I always encourage people to consider is be willing to do the job nobody else wants to do, right? And in that particular instance, it was a grave shift. Like nobody wanted to work the grave shift with like odd days off and stuff like that. And so the opportunity came up, and I jumped at it, and that was around late 2000, early 2001. The economy was in the dumps, like really really bad situation for most folks, and it actually created an opportunity for me to like reinvent myself and go kind of leap into the next level of my career. And kind of the rest is history. But nothing like sitting in a SOC, again, access to a lot, because it was an MSSP, monitoring lots of different customer environments, seeing lots of different types of things, and responding to live attacks against lots of different types of systems, right? And it was a really, really good, like sink or swim kind of introduction into this world.
Nice. Yeah, and the reason I asked that question was simply because I knew you had a different background than just going to a college and jumping in. And I think it's important that our community understands that there's so many different paths into cybersecurity. And so let's jump into why you love being a cyber pro today.
Yeah. So, and what you just said, I think actually a lot of it comes from the fact that there's no set path, right? And it's definitely one of the things I love about cybersecurity is you can just pick a discipline that you're particularly interested in and just go down that rabbit hole and keep going. There's always something more to learn, always something more to discover, right? And so yeah, it really is a great industry for, there are people in this business that have expertise in application programming, right? And they go down the application security realm. And then there are people that have backgrounds that seem like they're not related to cyber at all. Like I know people that come from the psychology, kind of discipline that end up, focusing on a lot of the social engineering sort of stuff, right? And it's, not necessarily highly technical, but it's cyber through and through,
Right.
So that just, there's no end to, the fascinating things that you can encounter in a particular day, right? That's absolutely what I love about it. It's great.
Nice. So the world talks about cybersecurity as a top concern, but what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, so that's funny. Being here at Pacific Hackers, like I literally just did a talk on this. one of the things that I covered was, it was a breach that happened quite a while ago. It was the Anthem Health breach. It was back in 2015 that was originally reported. 80 million patient records exposed as a result of that. But the underlying motivation behind it was pretty nefarious, right? It was a nation state driven attack, and ultimately they used that information to cross reference it with the nation state that retrieved it, used it to cross reference it with other information that they had that allowed them to identify the movements of CIA operatives through Africa, Middle East, Europe, etc. Right? And at the end of the day, like, the thing that really like sent home from or drove home for me is, this very much, whether we're civilians working for civilian organizations or not, this is very much an aspect of this that is rooted in warfare, right? That was a nation states wartime motivation to engage in espionage against a civilian organization here, right? And regardless of who the specific threat actor was, the nation state that they were originated from or whatever, like, that's sort of inconsequential. At the end of the day, this is an issue that we're confronted with, by any number of countries that we don't necessarily see eye to eye with, or that we're at odds with, or whatever. And it's not as obvious as a kinetic war that this is going on, right? But it's very much under the surface, at least warfare like activity. And when you look at even the criminal enterprises that are engaging in this stuff, they're using the same TTPs that the nation state actors are using, right? And so just because they have different motivations, you can't just discount it as not wartime like activities, because they're doing the same stuff. It would be like, a country invading another country, and then, criminals going and using the same weapons that that country used to invade another country and using them to rob a bank. Right? Like, the fact that they're doing something different doesn't, I mean, these are practically weapons of mass destruction that are being deployed to carry out this kind of thing, right? So yeah, at the end of the day, like, I take this responsibility associated with my role in this industry very seriously, right? It's more than just an occupation. Like, it's a lifestyle for me through and through. I'm here, like, eating, sleeping, and breathing this stuff. So.
That's awesome. Soldier of the cyber war,
Yeah,
right here in the civilian
and
world.
a total civilian too, like no military background whatsoever, and not that I'm like, there's nothing about war that I like, right? Like, so it's not like a sensationalist thing where I'm
Right.
just, I'm going to be a soldier or whatever. It just like kind of dawned on me at one point, like, this is what we're up against, and if we don't have the appropriate perspective of what's actually involved with what we're doing, we're at a disadvantage right out of the gate, right? So yeah, that's some of the mindset behind that, I guess.
Great. It actually is a good way to segue into this next question, which is, what insight do you want to share with our community of cyber professionals?
Yeah, well, so I'd say for the folks that are trying to work their way up and really establish their role in the field, kind of what you talked about earlier is like there's no set path. Whatever your interests are, there's probably some way to apply that in cyber, right? But the thing that's sort of not obvious is there's this kind of expectation that you have to have a bachelor's degree, or you got to have a master's, or you've got to have some kind of formal education around it in order to find your way into this business. And I'd say, like, just embrace the work. Find a problem that's difficult to solve and go immerse yourself in it, right? Put yourself out there, talk to people, get away from the screen for a little bit, and come to things like events, meetups, Pacific Hackers events like this, the stuff that allows you to really kind of get connected with people. And I've found that when you put yourself out there, offer to solve problems for people, that they're rarely going to turn you down,
Yep.
and so if you just really kind of lean into the problem, opportunities are abundant, right? And stop thinking about what you don't have and just focus on what you can do. That's been, I'd say, a hallmark of my career. I focus on being adaptable, step into situations that I'm unfamiliar with and just focus on the fundamentals that I have to be able to adapt to what the situation needs and look to solve a problem, right? And
Love it.
that's probably the biggest insight that I could share. That, and I'll give you one more thing
Please,
if you don't mind.
please.
So my specialty is basically security validation, right? Like this is
Okay.
what I spend the majority of my time doing. There's kind of an industry sort of subsector called breach and attack simulation, right? And so you could think of it like there's folks that do pen testing and red teaming and things like that. And where I think breach and attack simulation and security validation are different is that it's a more frequent operation that you're engaging in. Pen tests tend to be a quarterly, if not yearly, kind of thing, right? And so doing breach and attack simulation, like my position is every single time you have a change window where something is likely to change in the environment, you need to, on the back end of that, go validate your security stack and make sure that it functioned the same way it did before that change window opened, right?
Nice. Yeah.
And so if you have a weekly change window, then you should be validating the effectiveness of your security stack every week, right? And that's something that I think is just maybe the industry at large hasn't quite caught up to that level of thinking, right? So we really got to push to reset how we approach defining what is effective, defining what is acceptable for a security operation, a security engineering program, right? So that's one element of it, and then the other element I would say is because we haven't been super progressive on that front. I think as an industry, we've even at the vendor level, we've maybe gotten a little bit lazy with how we test and validate the products that we're putting out there, right? And what I'm getting at with that is if you really think about how QA is done for most of the like just software development industry, right? It's okay to do really discrete QA oriented tests. When it comes to cybersecurity, it's not okay, right? Because attackers aren't attacking in discrete atomic
Right.
exploits. Like it's congruent attack activity that there's an objective at the end of it, right? It has a start, a middle, and an end. And if you're testing your cybersecurity products that you're then rolling out to production environments just based off little snippets of what an attacker is going to do. First off, when you get that thing into the production environment, it's probably going to be an alert cannon, right? It's going to generate a crap load of noise. But secondly, its ability to actually detect, a cyber attacker's like objective while they're trying to actively evade that detection is it's going to be prone to false negatives as well, is what I'm getting at, right? And so anyway, this is kind of I bring it up as an insight. I guess it's more of like a drum that I'm going to keep beating, like a message that I want to get out there to the industry, like, hey, we really need to sit down and rethink how we're doing this. Both in our production environments where we're deploying these tools, but all the way back up to the vendor level where we're just doing basic QA of the products we're developing, right? We really got to start to look to retool these practices and approaches. So
Awesome. Thank you for that.
yeah, my pleasure.
Tom, talk to me and tell me about your favorite piece of retro technology that makes you smile.
So when I was a kid, I had a pinball machine. I thought it was the coolest damn thing in the world, and I assumed my parents like spent a mint on getting this thing. It turns out like it was retro then, so they probably only dropped a couple $100 on it, right? But it was, like I said, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I loved playing that thing. It only had a 4-digit score, or maybe it was a 5-digit score counter on it or something.
Yeah.
It was all analog and whatever. And so like my high score was in the like tens of thousands or something, it was hilarious. But
Awesome.
man, I love playing that thing. And so anyway, like anytime I see a pinball machine of any sort, it really brings back great memories. But especially the vintage pinball machines are just I love seeing those things. So
Nice.
you'll have a hard time pulling me away from one at a company event or whatever.
Great. Tom, thank you so much for being on the Cyber Pro podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching the Cyber Pro podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new podcasts and bonus content.